And here we go. Welcome back to the Good Performance Podcast. I'm Otto Zaccardo, joined with Troy Shallow, and we have a very special guest today. Well, I guess all of our guests are special, but this one is exceptionally special.
This one's near and dear to the Good Performance heart and the Good Performance core, okay? We got a guy on here today who embodies a lot of what we talk about.
Yeah, don't worry. We don't keep that going. But
Am I supposed to introduce myself, or?
No, we'll introduce. I mean, a little bit of an introduction, and then you talk more about yourself because I usually miss a lot of things. So today we have Ben Colello, currently coach at Tufts Track and Field, associate head coach at Tufts Track and Field. Ben was a teammate of ours in high school. He was our quarterback, our star-stud quarterback. I also ran track with him, our track captain, all-American track athlete, and then he went on to be a multi at Dartmouth and do a bunch of great stuff, all Ivy. He's the real deal. He's what you want everyone to be like. Everyone always says his whole life, be more like Ben, you know? They don't know the truth.
My brother Sam, we couldn't stop hearing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they don't know the real truth, but that's what people would hear.
We just had a couple of multis a couple of multis from Lehigh in the gym on Friday.
There you go. Good guys, those multis.
But yeah, so I'm not great at intros. So Ben, introduce yourself a little bit more, maybe run down into some detail, and then we'll just get talking. We try to keep this formal, and then eventually it never works out.
No problem.
It's better with just a casual chat.
You said it. No, you hit the nail on the head there, Otto. It was perfect. From Sudbury, Mass. Grew up playing every sport. Found that my calling was track and field my freshman year of high school, and then continued on with football because I loved it, and I got to have some exceptional teammates like the two you see here. But no, yeah, track and field was my specialty throughout high school. Mainly a 400 hurdler. 400 hurdles 110 in high school, and then made the switch over to the decathlon. In college, up at Dartmouth College, had a blast doing that, and that really, unintentionally set me up for a great start of a coaching career, just because I could do a little bit of everything, a little bit of sprints, a little bit of jumps, throwing, whatever I kind of needed to do, I could be slotted in and help out. So yeah, it's been a fun little transition from athlete to coach. Still trying to do a little bit of the athlete thing with continuing to throw the javelin now, but yeah, I've had a lot of fun after graduating from Dartmouth. Volunteered for 1 year at Harvard, and then was a graduate assistant, and then later on the head coach at Regis College in Weston, Mass, Division III, and then this past summer made the switch over to Tufts University, and have had just the best 6 years of coaching, 6 years of a start of a career that I could have imagined. So yeah, having a lot of fun. Thank you both for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. One thing that seems to be reoccurring, and every time someone talks about it, I'm going to bring it up because it's something that Troy and I have talked about with many other people. We were on the Strong Life podcast, and it keeps coming up over and over again. And you mentioned it. You played every sport growing up. We see that a lot of people are trying, a lot of kids and parents are trying to hyper specialize really early. And all of the athletes that we have kind of seen, stay connected with, talk to, coaches, they tend to do a little bit of everything. And that's part of GPP, right, Coach?
That's a part of GPP. I have a funny story about baseball. Me playing against Ben in baseball on the note of playing multiple sports, and we want kids to play a bunch of sports. So real quick, I'll interject with this story here, because this is maybe my first introduction to Ben Colello. I was a fifth grader. I was playing up because I was a stud, obviously. And I was playing up, and Ben was in seventh grade, and I got the start on the mound. So I was pitching, okay? First guy up to bat, Sam Colello. First pitch, home run. First pitch I throw, home run from Ben's brother. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Second pitch, the next at batter is Ben. So it goes Sam, his twin brother, and then Ben. Okay? First pitch, home run, Sam Colello. Second pitch, home run, Ben Colello. I said, Jesus Christ.
Take me
First two pitches of my first start. I'm like, well, I can't do this. I'm not ready for this.
Troy Shallow on the mound for the Kansas City Royals in Sudbury Little League T-ball, pitching against the San Francisco Giants. What a time. Upper Featherland, I'll never forget it.
Yep, back-to-back pitches, back-to-back home runs. I said, this ain't for me. But, yes, that's on the point of playing multiple sports.
Give me a football helmet.
Ben was a stud at multiple sports, but yes, we can dive more into that. That's my story from youth baseball and my introduction to Ben.
I did say
Awesome.
we can start with glory day stories and then roll into it.
There you go.
Yeah, Ben was one heck of a quarterback. I remember I have a bunch of stories about you being an athlete in high school, but
Great.
one of my favorite ones was when we were in the playoff game for football against Haverhill, and we're at the goal
That's a good
line. And, Coach Lopez, I forget. You know the story better than me.
I think he called a play, and it was to give. I think it was to give a
Ben knows the story.
Yeah.
It was so we're on the goal, we're like 6 yards out, and we're already up big, and fourth quarter, whatever it was, and Otto was pissed off because he hadn't not enough touches or hadn't scored a touchdown or something.
I don't think we were up big.
We were up like at least 10 points, I think. It was like fourth quarter. Anyway, and Otto hadn't had his signature moment yet.
It was like to punch
Lopez,
it in to seal the game.
Yeah, and Lopez called a 45 whatever trap or something, and then it was like a timeout or something. Then we get back from the timeout, and Lopez switched it to a 34 belly or
34 lead belly.
Yeah, there you go, 34 power. And I just played dumb and got back to the huddle. I'm like, all right, 45 trap, here we go. To get Otto the ball, Otto took it the rest of the way. It was great. No, I get back to sideline, and Lopez like, what happened? I called him 34 power. I'm like, oh man, I forgot it. We said 45 trap earlier. Sorry.
The true pal moment. No, actually, what you said is you came in the huddle, you said, you gotta get in the end zone. And I remember I dove over someone to get in.
Or else I'm gonna get killed. There you go.
Classic. And then our escapades with our 4x4.
Man,
my junior year, Ben's senior year. I think that record still stands. I don't think anyone's broken it.
I mean, definitely at LS, we were kind of more so gunning for that state record, but no, couldn't be upset about breaking 320 as a high school 4x4 team. That was pretty special. Averaging below 50 seconds per 400 was pretty awesome.
Averaging, yeah.
That's. Oh.
We had three really fast guys. I know. I think the record that we were trying to break was it the Morris brothers? I think it was theirs. Right?
Was it Brockton? It was Brockton back in the day. I don't know. I think
Natick ended up beating it after, but I think it was the Morris brothers. One of them was the all-time leading rusher for Syracuse for a while.
Yeah, well, they played out at Air Shirley, I believe, in high school.
Is that where it was? I thought they had. Maybe it wasn't the 4x4. Maybe it was the 4x1. I know they had some record that we tried for at some point, and we did not beat them.
So, Ben, we talked about baseball. Obviously, you played football. What else did you play growing up, and how did that, everything you play, how did track become the sport?
Yeah, 100%. So started with, what was the first sport? I get T-ball, soccer kind of at the same time. Always loved baseball, and then played soccer until basically started playing football. I think I started a year later than everybody, so probably fourth grade. But yeah, so it was always kind of football in the fall, bounced around a little bit in the winter, but kind of found basketball. We did a bunch of swimming. We lived right next to the town pool, and so we did a little bit of swimming in the winter and the summer. But yeah, found basketball. And then always, kind of stuck with baseball. Obviously, coming from Sudbury, just the lacrosse friggin' factories. You get to second grade and they just hand you a stick. So we played lacrosse for a couple years too. My brother and I ended up liking baseball a lot better. So we stuck with that. And then really, what got me into track was seventh grade when you can start playing for the school team. I knew that, I had grown at all. I wasn't a super big guy. I remember Sid Warrenbrand was the only guy that had a shot to make the Curtis Middle School baseball team. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'll find something else to do, and started doing track. And I'm like, geez, I think I'm a little bit better at track than I am at baseball. And then just kind of stuck with that. And then that turned out to be the same thing for basketball. I played basketball my freshman year of high school, and then I remember the spring of my freshman year, I was on the track team, started the Fort Turtles, and I missed qualifying for like the Division I state meet by like a tenth of a second. I'm like, are you telling me that if I had run indoor track rather than play basketball, I wouldn't have improved a tenth of a second? So that was all the motivation that I needed to be like, screw basketball. I'm not going anywhere with this anyway. So yeah, but no, that's probably the biggest advice. I mean, I don't know if I'm in a position to give a ton of advice, but
yes, you are. You are in a position to give a lot of advice.
Any advice that I could give would 100% be play all of the sports that you can play growing up. Please, please, please do not pigeonhole yourself into a sport that you might be good at when you're 8 years old, and either you haven't grown and you're gonna grow a ton, or you have grown all you're gonna grow and you're gonna stay that size until high school. Like you just never know what's gonna happen. You never know what's gonna stick. That's why I kind of love the sport of track and field too. 6 years into my track and field career, I switched to the sport. I switched to the event that was my best, right? And then the event that I'm still doing wasn't even my good event until my senior year of college, So yeah, you just never know what's going to happen, and you never know what's going to stick and what you're going to be able to specialize in. So keep playing different sports, keep trying new things, keep putting yourselves in those uncomfortable positions, and that's going to teach you to be a better athlete.
And now you mentioned that spring you missed that qualifier, so you're 14 years old, missing the D1 states by a tenth of a second, and that's something that I don't know if we have a word for it. The drive, the competitive nature, but at 14 years old, you're thinking, crap, like I could have trained harder, I could have pushed. Like hindsight's 2020, so obviously when you miss a mark, you can think of a million reasons as to I could have done this, I could have done this. But that's something that I don't know if it's innate or natural, or something that if you're a young athlete listening or a coach trying to find these elements in their athletes, is that internal drive and desire to be better, right? So a lot of times when we have kids that start, not super strong or not super fast, we want them to be upset we want them to get to the point where they're upset when they miss their mark. Because a lot of times at certain levels, athletes will miss a mark and then they'll just get deflated, demoralized, and that's like the end of it. I need to silence notifications, my bad. But it's really just about pushing forward and being hard on yourself and saying, no, I can do this. I'm so close. And that's something that seems to be lost a lot. There's a narrative or a sentiment out there by parents and coaches where, oh, you missed this mark. You're wasting your time, kid. Like, move on. Why do you think
you didn't make the travel basketball team, or you didn't, whatever the case may be. And yeah, two parts to that, right? The thing that I've found myself saying at all levels, coaching a bunch of athletes, is that I can't want it for you, right? You have to make the decision that you want to be good at something and want to put in the work to be good at something, and that's a funky spot to be in as a coach, because I want all of my athletes to do as well as they can, right? But they are ultimately going to control how much effort they put in and how much they want to accomplish something. So everyone's like, let me just close this door.
Just leave it in the middle of the podcast.
My fault.
It's okay. We'll have Jamie edit this out.
Perfect. And the other part, man, what was the other part? What was the last thing you said, Otto?
You want all of your athletes to succeed, and you can't want it more than the athlete to be good. They need to have that drive to be good. There's two parts. That was the first part you were talking about.
I know. What was the last thing that you said before I started talking?
That a lot of time people, young athletes in particular, get demotivated where they miss something, and it's like you said, they get cut from a team, they miss a mark, they don't hit a lift, they're not as strong as Coach Troy, and they think, oh, why am I even doing this? Like, this is hopeless. And there are a lot of parents, older kids, coaches that will feed into that and say, yeah, kid, you're not cut out for it. No, just give up. Focus on something else.
Right. And what I'd say to that is, look at how long Coach Troy has been training versus how long you have been training. And how can that not excite you that you are, aspiring to be that, right? And I deal with it all the time in track and field, and especially in the technical events where it's like, a kid will either PR by a little bit or like not quite PR, whatever it is. And it's like, oh, like I did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And I didn't be like so frustrating. It's like, I view that as so exciting. And like, imagine when you hit all of this stuff correctly, right? Like, whether it's in football and I made this bad cut and I went the wrong way and I only made it a 5-yard gain instead of a 10, whatever it is, right? It's got to be so exciting to be at the stage where you know that you could have done better and still had a pretty darn good result, right? And sometimes, a lot of times that result might be, yeah, not making the team or whatever the case may be. But I think that kind of attitude of that growth mindset and that attitude of I'm doing this imperfectly. Think about when I get closer to perfect. Not that comes for anybody, but think about how much better I'm going to get and how much better I'm going to be because of it.
Amelia's also crawling by.
Love
it. Well, great. Sounds like Tufts has a pretty stellar coach on their hands.
4, 5, 6, 7. I think we've got 7 coaches on staff.
7 coaches.
Yeah. They got one very handsome, successful one in particular.
So after you decided in high school, you're like, all right, I'm going to quit playing basketball. I'm going to do track in the winter and spring. Obviously, you keep playing football. You finish out your football career as, our great quarterback that we love so much. And then, you go into track and you end up, what happened that senior year of track and, after that senior year of track, going to eventually Dartmouth and running track there as well? Because I know you guys had a pretty legendary senior year, correct? Your senior year, Otto's junior year.
Yeah. No, that was a great time. I mean, just enjoying everything that letting senioritis have its effects and just focus a little bit less on the classroom because you put in so much good work throughout your freshman through junior year, and then just kind of get to enjoy everything your senior year. Unfortunately, I partially tore my meniscus in football, so then I wasn't quite up to speed by the end of the indoor season, but got pretty close back to it for the spring season in track. We had a pretty solid football season, and then went right into indoor. I did end up breaking a school record indoors for the 55 hurdles, which was a lot of fun, and then on to outdoor, and outdoor is just, especially at the high school level, like at LS, right, we're just running through the hallways and rolling out mats, and just like it's fun, and like we have a lot of fun at the meets, but outdoor is really the time to shine at SPRAC, where we're outside and ripping the shirts off until Ellen Boss told us not to do that. But just having a blast and working really hard. Yeah, we touched on the 4x4 earlier, but myself, Otto, Josh Kerber, and Nick Verkler had a hell of a 4x4 that ended up winning the state championship indoors, and then we were second at New England's. We had a rough race at the state meet, but then ended up being second at New England's and broke 320 outdoors, and it was just a really a dream come true and a great way to cap off my senior year, the last meet that I competed for LS at. So yeah, and then also on top of that, individually, defended my state title in the 400 hurdles. And then also won the New England Championship in the 110 hurdles, and I just felt like it set me up for a really great college career, and didn't know at the time that I was going to be making the switch over to the decathlon, but I knew that the hard work that I had put in up until that point was paying off, and I knew that I definitely wanted to keep it going at the college level.
So now that leads into another question that I had, and actually Troy touched on this. I think you talked about it on your Instagram story, Troy. Everybody, when you're in high school, everybody's the best kid on their team. He was talking about football. When you get to college, everybody was the best guy back home. Yeah. So I think, what was that like going from, our high school track and field team for Lincoln-Sudbury to, Division I, competing against the Ivy League and beyond? What was that like in terms of, obviously, the academic load is harder, is the athletic response, like I would say commitments are quite a bit more, and the coaching's different, right? You have a lot more coaches and you're getting a lot more individual work, but how is that transition, and what were some of the biggest struggles that you had? And if you could go back, or if you're advising athletes as they transition from high school to collegiate sports, what would you have done to better prepare yourself for that transition if you could do it again?
Nice. I'd say something that was they tried to instill in our team and that really imprinted on me was there are two things that you can control as an athlete, and that's your attitude and your effort. And so if you're showing up every day with an awesome attitude, again, that growth mindset and just knowing that today has a chance to be an awesome day, and then going out and giving it your all every single day, there's no way that you're not going to get better. And then the other piece that you mentioned, Otto, that is also attitude, right? Is quickly learning that there's always going to be somebody better. Unless you're the Olympic champion, world champion, whatever, friggin' relating it back to football, Super Bowl MVP, right? There's always going to be somebody better than you. And just kind of putting that in your mind and always kind of working towards that, right? And working towards being the best that you can be, and trying to compete against those people that right now might be better than you, but knowing that if you bring that good attitude, if you bring that good work ethic, that you'll be where you want to be someday.
See, that's important, because that's important. What you're saying right there is knowing that there are people better, right? You may get to college and you're the best on your team, but now there's a senior and you're a freshman in college and you're like, oh my God, this kid is a stud. This kid is nasty. You can either say, I'm never going to be like that, so why try? Or I'm going to try and be like that. Like, I need to work this X amount harder to be like that. And that's the difference, because I think there are a lot of people who see that and are like, well, I'm never going to be like that, so why try?
Right. 100%. Yeah. And I think that just, that also comes from great leadership that hopefully you're going to experience on those teams, right? Where yeah, hopefully a lot of the upperclassmen on that team went through that same thing, right? And can like show you the ropes a little bit, and also just having that, just being a sponge, right? Especially like you're in the transition from high school to college, and just you're going to learn a ton, right? Like Otto, you can speak to it too, but like for track and field, like we didn't lift at all. Like we'd go in the weight room and just be like, okay, yeah, like have fun on the rack, have fun with the dumbbells. Like it was like, we didn't do anything. Shout out Mel, you're the man. But it wasn't exactly like it definitely wasn't a college weight room environment. And once I got to college, it was like, this is a power clean, and I'm like, this is my favorite thing in the world. Like this is going to get me explosive. Like, and I don't, that's exactly what I needed. And then just like the culture of the team too, and just interacting with a number of different people from a ton of different backgrounds, and seeing how they do things and what their mindset is, and how they approach specific things is super valuable. Just to kind of take bits and pieces from everybody. And Troy, you mentioned, or Otto, somebody said the coaches too, right? And just trying to absorb as much as you can. And there's so much new information thrown at you in that transition, but just trying to take bits and pieces that you can, easily understand, and try to implement that into your everyday routine, everyday practice, whatever it is. So, yeah.
You mentioned power clean. That's your favorite thing. Very interesting perspective. We don't do a ton of Olympic lifting, only when it's required, or if an athlete is going to a college or plays on a team that's Olympic lifting, friendly, or that's what their strength coach wants to do. We make sure they're prepared for that. But I'm curious, from a track coach's perspective, what are the types of results that you see you can use personal experience or as a coach, where you use the power clean to increase an athlete's overall body of strength, and that results in improved performance? Because I don't know how it is for track and field at the college level necessarily, where you're competing most of the year, right? You're running most of the year. So it's tough to get those big, heavy strength building blocks where you're kind of just, all right, you don't have to worry about anything. We can do a really drawn out progression and get really strong. How does that work? What's the thought process behind it? And what type of improvements do you see when you implement that style of training for track athletes, as opposed to doing what we typically do with our football guys? Is we'll do kind of a conjugate method where we're loading up heavy lifts and fast lifts and train that, that speed element with that above 1.0 meters per second average velocity with the bar speed. How do you use that in coaching? I know you're not a strength coach, but you know enough.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say the big thing for track, yes, we do compete for a lot of the year, but the funky thing about track is that we don't want to be at our best until very late in the year. So either very late in the winter season, that's like around March, that's when all the big championships are, and then for the spring season, we're kind of in it right now, like end of April through May. Basically the month of May is when we want to be at our best. So pretty much all the way until then, we are programming stuff on the track and in the weight room that is going to get athletes to be at their best at those specific times, right? Unlike football, where you've got a game to win every week, this is much more of a, yes, we're going to hopefully be getting better, but we don't want to have our best performances early in the year. Like actively, everybody gets so excited for the first meet, but it's like great, if we can start off at a good spot, awesome. But you got to know that we're only trying to improve from here. So if we don't start off as well as you would like to, that is good. As far as the lifting specific, through the summer and the fall, we're trying to do a lot of strength based things, right? So a lot of squatting, a lot of bench press, a lot of just things that are going to make us build up a great strength base. Same thing, we call our fall kind of our strength and conditioning period, where that's really all we're focusing on. We're not getting super technical with any specific events, right? Our high jumpers and long jumpers aren't doing a ton of long jump, high jump specific activities. It's just going to be making you a better athlete, and lifting is a huge part of that.
So on that note, do you tend to see athletes that really take that strength and conditioning part of the year really serious and make huge improvements in strength? Are those the athletes that tend to have the most successful season and peak at the correct times when they really are putting in work? Because I'm sure track teams are huge. So you get athletes, they might be naturally really fast, but I don't want to be in the weight room, I'll do the bare minimum. I'll follow the program. I'll do it because this is not my sport. This is not, track and field. Or maybe they do some things that they, as the individual, not being a sponge, they believe in. They saw an Instagram video or some world-renowned coach says, yeah, do this. Okay, I'm going to do this, but all this other stuff, I don't really buy in. How is that pretty standard where you see someone take that off-season strength building period, kind of transform their body? Are those the ones that have the successful seasons, or are there exceptions? What does that look like?
Sure. I mean, always exceptions to the rule, but I would say overwhelmingly the athletes that really apply themselves in the off season, that's really where the big changes are going to be made physically, right? And again, track and field is a weird sport where there's so much technicality to it that you're going to be improving, hopefully, and feeling different things all the way through the season. But the time that we're really focusing on getting more athletic, getting faster, getting stronger is the off season. And so if you're a long jumper and we need to work on speed, we can only do so much when we actually have real track practice starting in the winter, right? The speed development and the strength base is going to happen over the summer and in the fall. That's absolutely where we see those athletes go from where they're at to making the next jump, is in the off season, lifting and running. That's, running hills, sprinting, moving fast, developing those biomechanic things that they're going to need for when we get into the technical stuff, right? So learning how to efficiently run, learning how to efficiently get off the ground, learning how to efficiently move weight. That's the basis for our whole summer and fall program. And I'd say specifically freshman to sophomore year, you get these, a lot of the time, underdeveloped athletes that are coming in as freshmen that, haven't had a lot of time in the weight room, haven't had a ton of coaching in any specific thing. The biggest jump that I've seen and that many coaches would say they've seen is from that freshman to sophomore year, where, they have a good freshman year and then they got to be all in to put in that work over the summer and through the fall to take that next step their sophomore year.
We saw it this summer with one of the kids who had never run track before, but he came to us and was like, I want to walk on to Lehigh. We're like, okay. And we basically, like you were saying, went through an entire, all summer was strength building and sprint volume building, so that when he got back in the fall and had his walk-on tryouts, he was good to go. And he was, it was Otto took him aside mostly and was teaching him, this is how you actually run, right? So we're gonna run a ton, and this is how you correctly run, and we're gonna build your overall base of strength, because that's going to help your running form and, like you said, the proper biomechanics of everything. And that was a cool story for us and so forth. But it was a lot of we'd be at the field and stuff, and Otto would take him aside and be like, okay, you're going to run whatever. You're going to run a 400 right now, and I'm just going to watch you and when we get back, I'm going to adjust this, and this. And the kid's dying. He's like, I've never run this far. It's like, this is what you need. You need to be in great shape. Like, you need to use this time to build that now.
You said it. You said it.
Something that I found that actually came to mind when I was at the field with Josh yesterday was, because I don't know if you think this is kind of funny where I'm teaching someone how to run with proper form, Ben. I'm a pretty ugly sprinter in terms of sprint mechanics. I mean, efficiency or just muscling acceleration and hoping that the race is short enough that it, keeps me alive. But I was doing 10 yards and I'm struggling. I'm trying to hit a PR. I'm trying to, get a better time. And Josh was basically regurgitating my coaching to him when we were going through. And I looked at him and said, that's a great idea. And I did it. Man. And I hit a PR by quite a bit. It was awesome. But it's funny because sometimes as a coach, you can see these things, right? If I'm watching someone's sprint mechanics, I can look and say, no, you're not doing this, let's do this. But then when you do it yourself, like, it's tough to have. I think that's the value of a coach, because I get trapped in it. I know Troy does. You probably do too with your javelin training. Like, you get trapped in it where, okay, I'm a coach. I can tell all these athletes how to do this right. Obviously, I know what to do, but then you're kind of banging your head against the wall and you kind of have to take a step away and say, why don't I just listen to what I tell everyone to do? Right. But sometimes
true.
Sometimes I think even with seasoned athletes and coaches, you still forget. Right. I don't know if you've had this experience with your training, Troy, but I notice it with sprinting, especially for me, because a lot of guys have really ugly sprint mechanics. And that's coming from me, who does not have particularly, aesthetically pleasing mechanics. But even just the idea of relaxing, being smooth, running fast, things that I think people forget, especially football guys or Excel guys, they try to run really, really tight and they just crank it. But it was an interesting moment for me because Josh is 350 pounds, 340 pounds, and he's telling me, Coach Otto, smooth is fast. Relax a little bit when you're running, you'll run faster. Oh, a good coach. That's good advice.
No, but absolutely. Yeah. I think it's so true that coaching, and I feel like a lot of people say coaching makes you a better athlete, but I think it gives you the opportunity to be a better athlete if you can kind of take what you're saying and internalize it, right? And really make sure that you are doing those same kind of things, right? And then just also learning from your athletes and seeing, they've got a similar problem to what I do. That's what I've done so much in javelin, and having the opportunity to coach. Yeah, I have, between my multi-eventers and jab throwers, we've got a squad of 10 jab throwers, and I can pick out things from everybody, this is what this athlete's doing incorrectly. Let me see if that applies to me, right? And just we do a ton of film work and trying to film myself when I throw and everything like that, and just picking up on things that I can implement in my own training is big too. The other thing that just in general, something that you said earlier, Otto, was just about the importance of sprinting and running in football, and I don't think that there's any debate about it. And you've seen, just off the top of my head, I can remember Reggie Bush coming out saying something. I know Christian McCaffrey is trains as a track athlete, and that's I feel like especially for those guys that want to get faster, right? For those skill positions, for everybody that wants to get faster and be faster on the football field. I don't think there's any denying that. If you want to run faster, you have to run, right? And you have to be in shape and able to just what we're saying, produce the kind of forces that we want to produce, whether that's on the track or on the football field, and make sure that you know how to do that. And that's just reps and reps and reps. Over 10 yards, 20 yards, whipping yourself into shape with repeat 400s, whatever it's going to be. It's a huge part of football. It's a huge part of athletics in general.
That it is.
Yes.
That it is. Yeah, I mean, we recently, within the last few years, so not super recently, Su Bingqian, right? The Chinese sprinter that finally broke 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. You know about him, Ben?
I can't say that I recognize the name.
He was the first Chinese sprinter that broke 10 seconds. And he trained. The reason why it came in front of our face was because he had a coach, Randy Huntington, and he's I think 30 or 32 years old, and they completely changed his start. He switched his feet, he changed his whole methodology of training, and really got a lot stronger. We know that acceleration is the most trainable piece of athleticism, right? So, you might have a faster top speed than me, but if I can train acceleration, then I can get a lot closer to you in a race, even if I'm not naturally
and you can get to
as
top
fast.
speed faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we took not a lot, but some elements of that training philosophy where he's moving really, really fast. That's kind of where we already did do a lot of speed work, but where we really dialed in and made sure we're measuring bar speed and movement speed above that 1.0 or 2.0 meters per second, like average velocity. We took that from track guys. That's where it came from, because it's a metric you can track. It's something where we're not really worried about how heavy it is, but this is kind of probably the opposite of what a lot of track athletes need, where they probably need a foundation in strength, versus a lot of football guys get that foundation and strength. They come in, Coach Troy's screaming at them to add their weight up. They hammer their squat fundamental movement patterns down. They have that base of strength, and then they need to get a lot faster. They need to, we had our linemen this winter, and we hooked them up to that velocity, the VBT, and it was like they had never fired their nervous system at that speed before. It took us, I think, like 2 weeks for them to even hit, just using the bar to even hit 1.0. So that's a good point that you bring up, is you need to take the off season and really it's being a student of the game and being a sponge, but it's being year round. I think that when you're an athlete, I was like this, you're probably like this, everybody has been like this, is you have that bias where you only you have your ideas of what is important. I think this is the most important thing. So you selectively absorb all the information, right? I absorbed way more information from my strength coaches in college than I probably did or should have from my football coaches, right? Because in my mind, I was strength matters. That's what matters. If I can drive someone off the ball, like that's all that matters. I'm just going to be stronger, faster, more explosive. It worked out now as a coach, but to be
and bobsledder,
yeah, as a holistic athlete, though, I think that a lot of athletes, they lean toward either being really good at film study and knowing the sport, but then not applying that same student-like mentality to their training, or vice versa, where they're really dialed in on their numbers and they really need to get their back squat to be this and their power clean to be this and their bench press to be this, but then they're missing all the technical aspects where, okay, you have a coach with years of experience here telling you to fix this technique. You should try it out. You should consider doing it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a tangent for you there, Coach Troy. I know you said you didn't want.
Ben
No,
knows.
but I mean, you bring up a good point where just trust and coaching is so important too, and that comes with like building a team dynamic and just producing successful athletes and seeing athletes improve and everything like that. But yeah, just absolutely trusting your coaches and trusting their experienced eye is huge.
One thing that I want to make sure, because we're getting closer to time here, but I really want to make sure that we cover it, is your experience as the head track and field coach at Regis, because that was quite the feat of not only a coach, athlete, but also just in large leadership in terms of community building, turning a program around. It's something that, Troy and I have a lot of things to keep working on improving with the GPC. But one thing that I think we've done a very good job, and our athletes has helped us, is build a sense of community where it's welcoming to newcomers that can't bench 95 pounds, and it pushes guys that can rep out 315 to be better or work on their faults. But I'd really like to hear kind of that story and how you went about approaching it and just managing all the, tell us the story, because it's something that I am very impressed with. And I think that there's very, very few people that could actually turn a program around the way you did.
Yeah, I think it sounds honestly a lot like what you just said about the GPC. It's it was just like, kind of for me a little bit of not like checking my ego out the door, but just like, hey, if we want to build this program to where we want it to go, it's not just going to be, we're not going to be able to go out and get the best athletes, right? Because the program is really small right now, and not saying that we didn't, but the best and most experienced track athletes, right? And that's really where I dove in was what athletes can we get that, are athletes and know how to effectively move and are bodily aware, but we can turn into great track and field athletes. That was the big thing for me was finding those athletes that might not have the most experience or might not be the most technically sound, but are doing relatively well without a ton of coaching, without a ton of experience. And then knowing that once they got to Regis, we could expand on that and develop that in multiple ways. So that was a big thing. The other thing was just, building up the size of the team was huge. And just being able to have athletes show other athletes the kind of path, right? I think I started, we had 33 athletes on the team, and when I ended up leaving Regis, we had 65. So it was an awesome, awesome few year stretch where we were really able to build up the size of the program and just create that culture that we wanted to see, where it was, we had our veteran, more experienced, better athletes that can really be the example for those younger, less experienced athletes.
And so for people listening that know nothing about Regis, how many records were broken and what was kind of the overall outcome in terms of like that team? Because I think I remember seeing just, school record broken in this event, that event, just one falling after another. And previously those records had kind of just been there. And all of a sudden, Coach Ben comes in, he doubles the team in size, and all these records are broken. So what are kind of the stat sheet of your time at Regis there?
Oh man, I guess I can pull up the old resume. But no, it was something like 20-ish to 30 records that we ended up breaking. We won 2 conference titles, which is like, that was kind of like the pinnacle for us was the conference championship. That's what we were training for. And we ended up winning 1 indoor title in 2023 and the outdoor title in 2024 for the women, and the men were second place for 3 straight years, which was great. And so the women were either like, right in the mix for winning the title, and then the men were a solid second every year. And it was just a really fun experience for me, building up that team and just really creating the culture that I wanted to see and that I thought was really effective for the team, where it was like, doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter how successful you've been in track and field, you have a home on this track team, and we're gonna push you harder than you've been pushed before, and your teammates are going to be right there with you, and you're going to be trying new things, and you're going to be putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. You have to you got to trust me and trust yourself and trust your teammates that you're going to be better on the other side for it. That was really, that's why I'm probably still so growth mindset oriented, is just because I was the name of the game at Regis, and we developed some awesome athletes that didn't even know that they were going to be track athletes, that ended up being conference champions, that ended up breaking school records, that really dedicated themselves and trusted me a lot, and trusted their teammates, and trusted the process of going through a track season, and ended up really doing well for us. So it was a ton of fun.
I'm telling you, you could write a book on that story.
Really could.
We gotta have you. We'll have you back because
I was just about to say we're getting tight on time, but we're gonna have you back.
Awesome.
We're gonna have you back on. Awesome. There's so much more to talk about with you. It's like I feel like we haven't even covered half of what we actually.
I think we're at like 20%, but
we usually end with some Q&A.
We usually end with some Q&A, and just to wrap up that story is I think Ben here is kind of selling himself short, because anyone that has been in a leadership position, has coached athletes, has tried to transform something, and those who have never tried anything like that or don't put themselves in that situation, very few people realize how difficult that is. Culture building, that's what all of the social media posts are, is how do you build a brand and a community, and how do you start a business, and how do you do all these things, is building a culture, but no one ever goes into exactly how to do it. And getting people to buy into what you're telling them to do with that goal in mind is an extremely valuable and rare skill that we really try to foster, especially with the athletes, because now all those athletes that bought in and saw the results, because if you don't get results, nobody buys in. You're just a fake sales guy. But they bought in and saw results, are now taking that whole experience that they had with you as their coach on past sports outside of the track and doing good in other things. But that's something that's not in formal education. It's not particularly emphasized. It is when you get maybe to higher level, if you get into management and leadership. But it's kind of something that seems like a soft skill that would not be of importance. The more athletes I meet, the more coaches we talk to, the more even, our business advisors, the more people we talk to, that is the foundation of, getting stuff done, building community, like that's big stuff. Well done, Ben. Very inspiring. Yes. I hope more athletes realize that is, that's a big deal. You got a lot of good tidbits. We'll cut this up good. Q&A.
Yeah,
Coach Troy.
We'll fire a few through a couple here.
We'll go 5 more minutes and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, so I think we touched on this a little bit earlier with my point of view on it, but I'm curious as to if either of you have a different one. But the question is, what's the biggest adjustment going from high school to D1? And I said, when you're in, like I said in my Instagram story, when you're in high school, you're the best player on your team. Then you go to D1, everyone was the best player on the team. So check your ego and be a sponge. That was the advice I had given. I don't know if you guys...
Yeah, exactly.
If that's anything else to add to that, maybe no.
Next one. We got that one covered.
Okay. Best person you played against in college, or, for Otto and I, it would be football. For Ben, it'd be maybe the best person you ran against. For me, it would be probably Kenny Pickett at Pitt. Otto, I think I know your answer.
Yeah, I mean, when we played Louisville and you saw Lamar Jackson in the flesh, granted, I'm on special teams. I'm just watching from the sideline in my gear, but he moved at a different speed.
It's a different game.
It's just like there are guys that you see that are, they're ACC football player. He's really good. He's awesome. And him, I also throw in Dalvin Cook because I thought he was pretty impressive. Seeing him on the field, because I don't watch it. I don't watch a ton of football, believe it or not. So the only football that I really watched was our film and the games that we played in college. But yeah, Lamar Jackson moves at a different level, and I'm sure you see this in track. There are some athletes that, we have these ideas about coaching and attitude, but there are some athletes that are just, they get it. They're beasts no matter what. It makes you feel a little silly as a coach because you have this belief on how everything should be, and then there's always those exceptions that show up, and it's like, I don't know what to tell you. It's just amazing. He's running a 10-2, and I don't know. He didn't sleep the last 2 nights. I don't know what to tell you.
No, it's so true. I'd say three immediately come to mind, and sticking in the Ivy League. Number one's got to be Gabby Thomas. Just won the Olympic gold in Paris. She was, class of 2019. Ended up going pro after 2018. She unbelievable. I mean, she'd get to the conference championship meet, and she would win 4 events. I mean, and it's like a Division I conference championship meeting. She'd win the 100, she'd win the 200, she'd anchor the 4x4, she'd win the long jump, like these events that she doesn't even do, and she'd win it. It just knew that she was going to be absolutely unbelievable. And then got the silver in Tokyo, got the gold in Paris. Just an unbelievable athlete and just a great person. And so she's awesome. The other two throwers, Rudy Winkler was a hammer thrower for Cornell. He ended up doing his post-grad year at Rutgers. I don't know, might be a 2-time Olympian now, but unbelievable hammer thrower. Won the weight throw and hammer throw at every Ivy League conference championship that he competed at. And then the other one is Sam Mattis. He was a few years older than me, but he discus thrower for Penn, I believe, just set the American record in the discus to start the Open this year.
That's a garage strength guy.
Yeah, garage strength, absolutely. And that was the first time, probably in my college career, like you're talking about, Otto, seeing a different athlete. Like, this man was a house. I mean, and we've got some big guys, some big throwers in the Ivy League, but it's like, who is this guy? You could just, he's in his warm-ups, and you just see his freaking muscles bulging out of his jacket. It's like, my God, he's got to throw something far. And he was like putting the discus on the pole vault runway at Princeton, and just like, it was unbelievable. He's an unbelievable athlete. So much fun to follow along with his success too. So those are three. Gabby.
Probably one of those guys that when he's up, everybody that's there gathers around to watch.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
So another question is, I know you deal with a lot of throwers, javelin, shot put, discus. And one of the questions we have here is, any tips on how to deal with elbow and or shoulder pain? I don't know if so we run into a different type of, kind of elbow, shoulder issues here with our football guys. But from a track perspective with the throwers and stuff, if you have any tips on, how to deal with that.
Unfortunately, it's probably some kind of imperfection in the delivery. I mean, especially javelin, right? Discus and shot put, a little bit harder to hurt that elbow, or maybe some shoulder stuff. I know that can be kind of accentuated with lifting, and ability to I don't know, overhead press or anything like that. But yeah, I mean for javelin, we see a ton of athletes coming in as either multi-eventers or picking up the javelin still, or still learning. And it's if you try to throw the javelin like a baseball or like a football, it's gonna hurt. like it's, and really what my message to my jab throwers this year has been is, we don't even want to throw it. We don't want to feel like we're throwing the javelin. We want to set that arm back and fire our hip and fire our chest and fire the shoulder, and then have everything else come through on top of that, instead of just holding it back here and trying to muscle the crap out of it. That's how you get hurt. I mean, that's how, and that goes for shot and disc as well. The throws in track and field, it can't be a muscle. Maybe a little bit for shot put. You can get after it a little bit for shot, but disc and jab specifically, it's got to be, leave that thing back there and let the other forces that you're producing do their thing, and then your arm is going to come through much, much faster. You're going to get a lot more fascia working. You're getting a lot more ligaments working if you are nice and relaxed and just having everything else pulling your arm along.
So if they're getting elbow pain, you're going to say, all right, hold on. Let's look at your form of your actual throw, right? If we can change that, I bet you that's going to really release and alleviate some of that elbow pain and so forth.
You said it.
Interesting. It sounds like being relaxed and not muscling things is
a good theme.
A big key for performance, which is sometimes tough to get some of the.
One of my catchphrases is, let's make it happen. And a lot of times when we're throwing, I gotta say, let's not make it happen. Let's let it happen. That's the inverse.
That's the inverse of Coach Lopez's line.
That's right. Don't let it happen, make it happen. That's a lot of things. That's a lot of training. Don't let it happen, make it happen. But specifically with the throwing, if you try to make it happen, more often than not, it's not going to go too well.
Last question. 100 men or one gorilla?
Wow.
I am on the side of the gorilla, okay? Of the 100.
You don't say.
100 common man is getting smoked. 100 of the common man is getting smoked by one gorilla. That's my stance.
I've just seen these animal experts get on here and say it's like more realistic number would be like 40 to 60. That's 40 to 60 people instead of 100.
I have my answer. Before the experts came out, this was fresh off the press. Coach Troy asked us in the GPC, it's the men. And it's very simple. You break up into different teams. You will incur some sacrifices. The sacrificial team, say you got 100. 5 teams at 20. You have the distraction team. You have right arm, right leg, left leg. 3, 2, 1, pounce. Pin the legs down. The gorilla's not getting up.
3, 2, 1, pounce. Wow.
I thought of it more as like a football team doing it. In which case, I apologize to all my specialist friends, but you'd probably use the specialist as the distraction team.
You'd put Doyle out there first?
Yeah, Doyle. And
the punter.
Doyle, you're up. And you hope that...
Oh, come on. Doyle's got some fight in him. He can pin down a leg for sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, no, so this is the thing. After you get the legs and arms, the distraction team then goes back on top and pins whichever limb is the most feisty, and then someone's going for the throat, and you're just hoping that he just runs out of steam and exhausts himself. But I'm a pacifist, so I wouldn't believe in... Yeah.
It's a good debate.
I'm done with it.
That was a great hour.
Yes,
that was a
it
great
was.
hour. We covered a lot, and we definitely are going to have you on again because there's so much more
Yes,
to cover
please.
about your track journey and coaching journey and everything. Where can
Don't even try. I gotta go.
Where can the people who are listening, where can they follow Ben Colello, or where can they keep up with the great things that Tufts track and field are doing and what you're doing as a coach and so forth? And maybe follow your javelin journey and your comeback, you know?
Wow, how about it? Maybe I gotta make the whole Instagram profile public. I am, I believe, at Ben Colello on Instagram, and yeah, go Tufts Jumbos is where you can find all the good things that our track and field team is doing. TUXCTF as well. Yeah, but no, we're doing some great stuff. So please do follow along. That'd be awesome to see.
All right, we'll let you go. We know you're a busy guy. We'll have you back on at a later date once our production quality is upped a little bit and we can
Come
go
on,
into
this
some
is
details.
perfect.
Maybe we'll get you to an in-person one in the GPC once we up it a little bit.
Play some darts afterwards. That sounds
Sure.
perfect.
I've been getting good.